Welcome into Outkick the Show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I appreciate all of you spending your, what is today? Tuesday with me. I hope that you are all having fantastic Tuesday afternoons. I am reveling in the hot weather, just about to head over to the pool with the boys. So I'm going to dive right into the meat of everything here momentarily, giving you a rundown of where we're headed. WokeCenter 2.0 and 3.0 has hit an all-time ratings low in the history of ESPN. I will talk about that with you. Harvard is discriminating against Asian students according to a fascinating lawsuit that I think is going to have a major impact on the way that we cover and admit students to sports and to universities and beyond. Ed Werder is like the number one trending topic in sports media yesterday. I missed most of that. I was working. I didn't see it, but I'm going to talk about Ed Werder, and I think it ties in with the Harvard discrimination study. Jemele Hill, our good buddy Jemele Hill. Everything is racist. Jemele Hill, you know what she did? When Kellen Winslow was arrested, before she knew that he was arrested for allegedly raping women, old women everywhere, do you know what she did? She defended Kellen Winslow and said he was being arrested because of his race. Really. Mississippi State is on fire. 2 straight wins in the College World Series. What's going on there? And we have a new hero. A police officer in Indiana arrested someone who had 20 cars backed up behind them on I-65 in the middle part of our country. God bless you, good sir. Please only arrest people driving too slow on the interstate from this point forward. If you are gambling on the World Cup, and why wouldn't you be gambling on the World Cup? It's summer. Might as well have some fun. You need to go to sportsbookreview.com. I tweeted out the link earlier today. Make sure that you are able to get the best possible number wherever you are in the country and the world. Go check out all the different lines that they have for every World Cup match, and you will be in great shape. That's sportsbookreview.com. Also, I want to tell you right now, my guy Ryan Kelly, I was out at the draft at the DMD fundraiser, Duchenne Muscular Dystrophy fundraiser that 104.5 The Zone, my old radio station, put on. And Ryan Kelly was there. He was working, and we were sitting around talking. He said a lot of you guys are signing up through Outkick, letting him know that you're coming in through me or Outkick. And he said right now 2 big things. 1, you need to be pre-qualified if you're trying to buy a home anywhere in the country. They can get you pre-qualified in as little as a day. 2, if you have any credit card debt at all, you shouldn't have credit card debt. They can get all of your credit card debt wiped out in as little as 5 days if you own a home and you have home equity and you had that home for a couple of years. Odds are your home value has been increasing. I'm telling you right now, make the smart financial decision. I know how easy it is to have your credit card pile up, your credit card debt sitting there. You don't even want to check the mailbox. Why not wipe it all out, get a fresh start, take advantage of the fact that you made a smart financial decision in buying your home. Go to thehomeloanexpert.com. All right, so that is the way to play. Let's start off here. I want to hit you with some numbers that you're probably not going to hear anywhere else, and they have to do with this. WokeCenter 2.0 and WokeCenter 3.0 are crashing unlike anything we have ever seen before. I mean, this is mind-blowing stuff. I want you to check out these numbers, all right? On Friday, I've got the most recent data. It'll come out later today. We'll get Monday's numbers. But on Friday, Get Up, which is costing, and this is, people say, why do you talk about this? Well, I talk about sports media. I talk about sports business. This is one of the biggest challenges that I think anybody in a media of sports is facing right now. And it's Jimmy Pitaro, the new president of ESPN. He's taking over for John Skipper. John Skipper spent almost $15 million on Mike Greenberg, Michelle Beadle, and Jalen Rose. And he spent $35 million greenlighting this brand new morning show from New York City called Get Up. And he kicked all of the old morning Sports Center anchors over to ESPN2. He basically said, we don't care about Sports Center anymore. Get Up is the future of ESPN. And unfortunately, ain't nobody getting up with them because this number is unbelievable. Get Up on Friday had 196,000 viewers. Now, I got to tell you this right off the jump. Nobody at ESPN, nobody in sports media that I ever talked to believed there would be a day when original programming on ESPN would get less than 200,000 viewers. This is a different caliber of failure, something that we've never seen before. And how bad is it? In addition to spending $35 million on this new show, to creating this brand new New York City studio, to making the decision to pay these characters on the show, Mike Greenberg, Michelle Beadle, and Jalen Rose, $15 million. Their viewership is down 42% off of what the traditional Sports Center that aired in its same location showed last year. 42%. High Noon, a.k.a. Everything is Racist, starring Bomani Jones and Pablo Torre, had just 191,000 viewers, and that was down 54% off of last year's viewership. Now, I like to play sometimes a way to think like an owner. A way to think like an owner is to see a difficult business situation and in your own head contemplate, how would I fix this? What would I do? Clearly, there is a disaster afoot. When you lose 42% of your viewership in 1 year and 54% of your viewership in 1 year, and you are paying way more money for the new show than you were paying for the old show, something has seriously gone awry. And I talk a lot about on this show, Outkick the Show. Hi, I'm Clay Travis. I tell you a lot. The secret to, I think, life is thinking like an owner as opposed to like an employee. So if you are sitting in Jimmy Pitaro's chair and you are sitting there like everybody out there wants to say, oh, cord cutting is a challenge. How do we overcome this? This ain't cord cutting. When you lose 42% and 54% of your viewership in a year, something has gone seriously awry. I think what has happened, and this is part of my book, Republicans Buy Sneakers Too, is people pay way too much attention to social media. And as a result, they fail to ask the question, does someone who is popular on social media translate off of social media to television? And secondly, is what social media is obsessed with actually reflective of the larger population? And my argument is Twitter is a funhouse mirror. This is something that has been going on for a long time. Back when I was writing on Rocky Top and Dixieland Delight, college football coaches and administrators used to sit around and ask the question, how accurate or reflective of fan opinion are message boards? And the answer is sometimes, but not usually. Because what I have found is that by and large, what makes somebody successful on social media does not necessarily translate into the real world. And I think about this all the time because I talk to a variety of different audiences all day. For my show from 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern on the radio, I am talking to the guy or the girl who's in their car driving to work or the person who's going to school. I want to be entertaining for them, but I'm probably not going to be obsessed with everything that's going on social media. Sometimes yes, sometimes not. I think what's happened is the executives at ESPN have stopped trusting their own belief as to what big stories are and instead have started to trust what people on social media tell them. There's no way on earth, if you look at any metric, that Bomani Jones deserves his own television. He had his own radio show. It was the least successful national radio show in the history of ESPN. He lost hundreds of affiliates. They could not sell it to advertisers. People uniformly said, I don't want to listen to this guy. I'm not saying radio is a perfect template. I am saying this. If you are bad on radio and audiences do not respond favorably to you, it's unlikely that you are going to be good on television. I always say this. If I have you on my radio show as a guest and you are not good, all right, there is no way that you would then be good on television. I've heard of people who are good on radio and not good on television. I have yet to meet someone who is great on television or even good on television and bad on the radio. Okay? It just doesn't translate. Either you are good and compelling in terms of telling stories or you're not. Now, here's the truth. Writing is the hardest thing to do. Radio is the second hardest thing to do. TV is easy. TV is easy. There's massive numbers of people out there trying to make you look smart. You only have to talk for a couple of minutes. The vast majority of people who do sports on television could not do what I'm doing right now with you. They could not sit down without a single note and talk for 30 minutes without stopping while occasionally reacting to live comments, all giving you perceptive and hopefully entertaining positions on the world of sports and beyond. Okay? What I think is happening here, and by the way, let me put that performance by High Noon in perspective. Blaze and the Monster Machines. How many of you guys know Blaze and the Monster Machines? I'm not an expert when it comes to Blaze and the Monster Machines, even though I have 3 boys 10 and under. Blaze and the Monster Machines had over 926,000 viewers going head-to-head with this situation, with this Bomani Jones High Noon story. I also want to point out one other thing. So many in the media become beholden to who they cover, so they don't actually cover the news. I see this happen all the time. People always used to say to me when I would talk about media, they would say, yeah, but you're not showing up in the locker room every day and talking to coaches every day. I say, first of all, I don't hardly ever have coaches on my show. I have almost no interest in putting coaches on my show because unless I know the coach and I know they're going to be entertaining, coaches tend to talk in cliche. Now, that's natural. That's normal. I understand why they do it, but it doesn't mean it's going to be good radio. I also don't put players on my show that often because by and large, players are not going to be that interesting. Now, if a player is great, if a coach is great, if I know them and they're willing to come on and talk honestly, we will do that. But by and large, I'm not a guy who just puts somebody on because I want to use their name because I know they're not going to say anything. Because I don't have low self-confidence and need to feel like, oh my God, I got so-and-so on the show. That means that I'm legitimate. People listen to a show for the host. You either like the host or you don't like the host, and that's the reason you listen. Nobody has ever watched a show or listened to a show because of a guest. Now, it's important to get good guests over time, but the idea that if you have the greatest booker of all time and you have great guests, it's going to somehow translate into a good show is oftentimes not true. Sometimes we have guests scheduled, and I'm like, you know what? I'd rather take callers. Or, you know what? I'd rather talk with the guys on the show and discuss a topic that we've got rolling than actually go on and talk to somebody who's scheduled to be a guest. So I think this is an important story, and it's not being covered, and it's not being discussed. And in particular, a guy by the name of Richard Deitch. He loves to cover media. He's been going after Skip Bayless for years over his ratings tweets. He just sent out a tweet saying he's no longer going to compare ratings for Skip Bayless's show to other lesser-rated shows. Do you know why? It's because Skip Bayless has started to kick the crap out of people that he likes. Bomani Jones and Pablo Torre, Skip Bayless is dunking balls in the face style on him at FS1. Mike Greenberg, Michelle Beadle, and Jalen Rose, Skip Bayless is beating them head-to-head some days on FS1. This talking like balls to the face, Skip Bayless, old man dunking on ESPN programming. And the reason why Richard Deitch has suddenly stopped tweeting out the ratings is because he's not being honest. He's playing favorites. You can accuse me of a lot. I tend to tell you exactly what I think every single day. I don't know what the solution is here. You'll say, what's the solution to these awful ratings? If you're just watching right now, again, these are the numbers on Friday. 196,000 viewers total for Get Up. 191,000 viewers. This is big ESPN for High Noon. And they're also starting to negatively impact First Take with Stephen A. Smith, which is the most reliable show that's out there. On Thursday, they had 197,000 viewers, and they had, let's say, 193,000. So Thursday and Friday now of last week, both utter unmitigated disasters. The solution, I think, if I were Jimmy Pitaro and they said, Clay Travis, save us from this monstrosity, is one of two things. Either go back to the original SportsCenter and give people what they want. Now, let me ask you this question. I want you to think about this. I asked this on the radio this morning. Is it possible, two different things. Is it possible, one, that one reason ESPN's debate, like discussion programming, has declined in ratings is because the unemployment rate is so low now? When these shows took off back in 2008, we were approaching a 10% unemployment rate. there were a lot of young people sitting around in their house with nothing better to do than put on ESPN, young guys. How many people now are employed that we have 3.8% unemployment rates? Something to think about. Another aspect of this is there's a lot of talk, and I think Jamie Horowitz was right about this at FS1, that highlights on sports channels is the equivalent of music videos on music channels in the age of YouTube. That is, we all see the highlights. But isn't opinion more common than highlights? I might see 6 or 7 highlights that I like during the course of a day by watching my Twitter feed. There might still be 15 other highlights that I really like that I don't see. Whereas I've almost seen every opinion known to man on my phone every single day. I think sports opinion is actually more commodified than sports highlights. And so the viewer at ESPN, what they're saying is, you know what, give us more highlights because maybe we haven't seen that. I want to sit down on my couch and be entertained by actual sports. I don't want to sit down and see people talking about actual sports. I can listen on the radio to that. I can listen on the podcast to that. I do think it's kind of an intriguing question whether that era was partly predicated on 10% unemployment and also whether there's only a couple of guys who are really good at it. Whether you like him or not, Skip Bayless is good at it. Whether you like him or not, Stephen A. Smith is really good at it. How many other people are compelling, unique television presences that can draw audiences? Now, Cowherd's great on his show, but he's really good on his show because it's a radio show on television. I'm good at TV too, but I think there's an opening for something unique and new. So what would I do? I said one of two things. Either you go back to SportsCenter and re-employ all those people that you fired, or, and I think this is an intriguing option too, or you bring back Mike and Mike, you put them on as a radio show from a New York City studio, you add an hour to Stephen A. Smith, you get rid of Bomani and Pablo and bump them back to Around the Horn. I think that's probably the solution that would make sense if your goal is to stop hemorrhaging viewers. I don't know what they're going to do, but I'm glad I'm not Jimmy Pitaro. I would do one of those two things based on what I think is already a failed experiment. Now, the positive for Jimmy Pitaro is this was not his decision. And I think when it's not your decision, you cut bait a lot faster. It's basically like a coach who comes into a broken system and he looks around and he says, man, there's not a lot of talent here. He gets out of there in a hurry. I don't think he's going to give these shows the rope that they need in order to survive. I think he's going to cut bait and run. So WokeCenter 2.0 failure, WokeCenter 3.0 failure, final tenure and verdict on John Skipper's tenure at ESPN, F. If I could give an F minus, I would give an F minus. He's basically burned down a company that had 40 years of goodwill nearly built up before he got there, and in the process has tanked. All right, I want to talk about another subject. Ed Werder tweeted out yesterday something he was angry about at Sports Illustrated, which is Sports Illustrated, I think, had a job open, or wherever the job was open. They said they encouraged women to apply. And Ed Werder responded and he said, what about men? Shouldn't men be able to get these jobs? And something along those lines, I'm paraphrasing. And I don't think Ed Werder made the argument succinctly or very cogently, but I think what he was trying to say is sports is uniquely a meritocracy. We shouldn't be saying that we want people from particular backgrounds to get jobs because of those backgrounds. We should be trying to seek out the best possible person for that job. And I write a lot about this in my new book. I think that what should matter is your overall talent, not where you're from, not where you went to school necessarily, although that can matter when you're coming in without much of a resume. I think what should matter overall is your talent. And there is the perception right now among many ESPN employees that they have so aggressively gone after cosmetic diversity that they are valuing that over actual skill and talent. I think Bomani Jones is a perfect example of that. He's never done anything to justify having his own show. He's never brought an audience with him. He's never done anything despite ESPN trying to make him a superstar. And the ratings now that he's on television reflect that he doesn't have an audience and he alienates the one that ESPN already had. Okay? So this ties in, I think, with a recent lawsuit that's going on right now, and I think it's utterly fascinating. I just tweeted this out. I was reading in the New York Times, in the Wall Street Journal about this. I would also encourage you, and I do this every single day, read multiple newspapers. actual physical newspapers. I get the Wall Street Journal delivered every day to my house. I get the New York Times every day delivered to my house. People say, where do you get the information that you use your brain on? Those are the two things that feed me the most. And then I obviously read all day long a variety of different subjects. But this one to me is intriguing. I'm pulling this paragraph out of a Wall Street Journal piece today. Asian students are suing Harvard, alleging that they are being discriminated against. This is also going on in New York City, where Asian people are taking up too many of the top spots at top high schools in New York City. This is from the Wall Street Journal. Plaintiffs argue that Harvard intentionally discriminates, quote, from their data that they are sharing in their lawsuit. An Asian American applicant with a 25% chance of admission would have a 35% chance if he were white, 75% if he were Hispanic, and a 95% chance if he were African American. Let me ask you this question. Shouldn't Harvard be admitting the best possible, most qualified people regardless of their race? And if Asian people are only getting 25% of the spots here that they deserve, shouldn't we treat, I got a crazy idea, shouldn't we treat everybody all across the board exactly the same? Discriminating against Asian people because of their race is called racism. It's also called discrimination, and it shouldn't be legal under federal law. Now, I want to also blow your minds. Can you imagine what would happen if Jemele Hill took a knee during the national anthem in the NBA and protested the discrimination against Asian applicants to colleges? The world would lose its ever-loving mind. Yet Jemele Hill would be discriminating against something that is would be protesting against something that is actual discrimination. Think about that for a minute. If during the national anthem in the NBA, all these people who want social activism from players, if Jemele Hill, who is of Asian descent and went to Harvard, decided to take a knee to protest against the discrimination being lobbied against people of Asian descent by Harvard, a school that he went to, it would blow up everybody's mind. I want you to think about this for a minute. Because everybody's like, oh, players should be active. Players need to espouse their First Amendment rights. If Jemele Hill did that to call attention to direct discrimination being felt by Asian people, what do you think the sports media's reaction would be? They would not defend Jemele Hill. They would defend Harvard's admission policies. People sometimes get mad at me over my opinions. But when you apply the logic to my opinions, what you find is that there is a coherent philosophy undergirding everything that I say. I try to treat everybody the exact same, whether you are Asian, whether you are Hispanic, whether you are white, whether you are black. What Ed Werder was trying to say there was the idea on social media that somebody would put a post up and say, hey, I want somebody of a specific race or gender to apply to this job, is actually the opposite of what America should stand for, and certainly the opposite by and large of what American sports competition is founded on, which is the idea that the best man or best woman wins regardless of their background. No, think about the reaction here if I said this. If a poor inner city school were playing a rich school in sports, no one would start the game and say, hey, let's walk out to the scoreboard and give points to the poor kids because they haven't had access to as good of training, because they haven't had access to as good of a school. Their weight room is not as nice. Their basketball gym is not as good. Their rims are old. Sometimes they're broken. They have to share their equipment with too many other different people. If I argued to you, or a coach argued, we need discrimination points added to the scoreboard so that this soccer game, this basketball game, this baseball game, or this football game is more even, every single person out there would think that was ludicrous who is an actual sports fan. Because we believe that everybody inside the lines should play the same rules. and should play against each other equally. Moreover, if a coach walked into a locker room and told his kids, hey, those kids are richer than you, those kids are more advantaged than you, those kids test higher than you, those kids, and all these things. And he said, and so, instead of using it as motivation, you need to go out there, you need to work harder, and you need to triumph over them because you want it more, which is what we say in sports. If he said, you know what? If they're not going to give us diversity points, we got no hope to succeed. Society is aligned against us. That would be the worst coach of all time. Sports gets America right. Instead of trying to make America more like what we see in sports, which is what we should do, we're trying to make sports more like America. And that is fundamentally wrong. And I think that's what Ed Werder was trying to get at. We shouldn't have jobs reserved for women. We shouldn't have jobs reserved for men. We shouldn't have jobs reserved for transgender people. We shouldn't have jobs reserved for anybody. The best man or woman should play. And I think you will agree with me that if Bill Belichick found out that a transgender Muslim midget was the best quarterback in America, he would play that transgender Muslim midget quarterback. Whatever ethnicity and ethnic groups you want to throw in there, the best man or woman or transgender athlete would play. The NFL is a meritocracy. And what we need is more meritocracy in America, not less. And so when I see this story about Harvard and the fact that they are discriminating, again, this lawsuit, and I think it has the potential to fundamentally alter America in a good way. An Asian American applicant with a 25% chance of admission would have a 35% chance if he were white, 75% if he were Hispanic, and a 95% chance if he were African American. Why should your race determine whether you can go to the nation's most elite academic institution in the country? And why should Harvard be making determinations based on filling up its class based on the color of your skin? This is completely anti-American. And again, I would love to see somebody like Jeremy Lin take a knee during the national anthem and just blow people's minds. Now, I don't think you should take a knee during the national anthem because the story turns into the national anthem in general. But I certainly think that Jeremy Lin, who is an Asian Harvard graduate, has a real robust case to make here that his people, Harvard applicants who are Asian, are directly being discriminated against, which is a case I don't think anybody else that I have seen in the world of athletics can legitimately make based on what the government is doing. So this is a case that I encourage you to pay attention to and follow. I'll continue to talk about it. Speaking of your worldview influencing your opinion, Jemele Hill went on Twitter. And when I say that, you probably know where I'm headed. Jemele Hill went on Twitter. When I say that, it's probably not going to be very good. I'm going to pull up what she said. When Kellen Winslow was arrested because somebody thought he looked suspicious in a neighborhood and thought, you know what, this guy's not behaving in a way that I would like for him to behave. I think he looks suspicious. I'm going to call the cops. And by the way, Kellen Winslow, if you're not aware, has been arrested for a variety of very serious violations, right? For a huge number of violations. I'm going to pull up what Jemele Hill sent out because I think this is going to blow your mind. I think you're going to look at this and you're going to say, wow, this is crazy when you see these numbers. Jemele Hill. All right, first of all, here's what Kellen Winslow was arrested for. According to Dan Wetzel, Kellen Winslow was arrested for, this is real, kidnap, rape, and forced oral copulation of a 54-year-old woman in March. Kidnap, rape, and sodomy of a 59-year-old woman in May. Indecent exposure in May. The victim was a 55-year-old woman. Burglary with the intent to rape a 71-year-old woman in June. And burglary with the intent to rape an 86-year-old woman in June. Somebody saw Kellen Winslow behaving mysteriously in a neighborhood and called police. They were later able to figure out that this was Kellen Winslow and that he was behind, allegedly, all of these crimes. Now, maybe he's got a CTE defense. This dude has clearly got, according to these allegations, very serious things against him. When this happened, Jemele Hill tweeted, can't barbecue, golf, get Starbucks, nap, and now shop for a home. This list is getting longer and longer. She saw that Kellen Winslow was black, and she decided that he was being discriminated against. He was actually shopping for old women to rape, and he was caught in the neighborhood so doing because somebody in the neighborhood thought that he was behaving in an abnormal fashion. Jemele Hill took to Twitter, said, can't barbecue, golf, get Starbucks, nap, and now shop for a home. This list is getting longer and longer. I guess we have to add to the list, can't rape old women, because Jemele Hill immediately saw that Kellen Winslow was a black guy and believed that the reason why he had been arrested was because he was a black guy. This is an example of using your worldview to immediately see everything through the prism of color. I think Jemele is a fascinating test case on what goes wrong with Twitter. She had the opportunity to be Oprah Winfrey and appeal to everyone. Instead, she decided to be the Reverend Al Sharpton, and her career is going to end at a precipitous rate because she's tweeting things like that and playing the race card every single time anything happens. Kellen Winslow gets arrested for rape of old women. Jemele Hill says the man can't even shop for a home, or he can't shop for more old women to rape. Sometimes calling the police when you see somebody behaving suspiciously is, wait for it, the right move. All right? What you should do is not judge somebody based on the color of their skin, but on the behavior that they are showing. And in that situation, whoever called the police may well have saved lives and certainly may well have saved many victims from becoming victims of Kellen Winslow. A couple more things. Mississippi State is on fire. I am rooting for Mississippi State to win the College World Series. They beat North Carolina today. They are a fun team to follow. I've liked this team since I went and watched them play against Vanderbilt. I was disappointed they beat Vanderbilt, but I want them to win the College World Series. Was impressed with how a couple of their guys on their team were big Outkick fans. They brought out autographed baseball to my kids, to me. Hail State. They have been a lot of fun to watch. Break out the bells, the cowbells, and ring them home. It was phenomenal. Yes, the rally banana is ridiculous, but that is pretty entertaining in general. Finally, as I finish off the show here today, I want to give praise to one of the greatest human heroes that exists anywhere. He is a police officer in Indiana, and I have been begging. If you talk to my wife about this, I have been on this for so long that she would say that I drive her crazy every time we go for a drive. Sergeant Stephen Wheels, ironically, given that he's a traffic cop, Stephen Wheels said, I stopped this vehicle today for a left lane violation on I-65. The driver had approximately 20 cars slowed behind her because she would not move back to the right lane. Again, if there are vehicles behind you, you must move to the right lane to allow them to pass. This drives me insane. I almost lose my mind every time I come up and see somebody in the left lane with 20 cars lined up behind them. You see people weaving back and forth, making ridiculous moves to the left or the right lane to try to get past them. In a two-lane interstate, if the person in the left lane just sits there, I don't know how you are so oblivious to the fact that there's a huge line of cars behind you. This man is a hero. I've been arguing this for a long time, maybe counterintuitively. I wish that cops would pull over slow drivers more than they pull over fast drivers. Now, if you're going like 100 miles an hour in a 70, that's different. But if you're going like 85 in a 70, the person who is making it more dangerous is not the person going 85 and then getting over after they pass somebody. That's allowing the traffic to smooth out. It's the person going 60 or 65 in the far left lane. These people drive me insane. They should be pulled over. They should be ticketed. I'm on a campaign to let everybody in the left lane know if you're not passing somebody, then you are keeping other people from passing. Get over. Get over. Move to the right. Get out of my way. Don't be a left lane hog. Don't make driving miserable. Get over. And police out there who watch or listen to this show, pull them over. And if you tweet me that you pulled over somebody for driving too slow, I'll retweet you I love you. You're an American patriot. Make our interstates great again. All right, I love you. My name is Clay Travis. If you enjoy the show, share it with your friends. This has been Outkick the Show. I'm live every single day, weekday, right around 3 o'clock Eastern. And I'm also live 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern. Got a ton of different affiliates all over the nation. We added Chicago recently. We just added Stockton and Modesto in California. 300 AM FM stations nationwide, all 50 states, Sirius Satellite Radio. Come hang with me in the morning as well. I am Clay Travis. Kisses. I'll also maybe send you some swag if you're a cop pulling over people in the far left lane. Make our interstates great again. DBAP, boys and girls, but sometimes be a pussy. General rule, don't be a pussy. DBAP, but sometimes you got to SBAP. I'm Clay Travis. This has been Outkick the Show. Kisses. I'll see you guys tomorrow.